Robert Collymore, the CEO of East Africa's telecommunications giant Safaricom, took the helm from the previous CEO Michael Joseph in 2010. Since then, he has seen the company grow from strength to strength. Safaricom has long been seen as a monopoly in Kenya's telecommunications sector. We sat down with Bob to talk about growing competition for its globally acclaimed money transfer innovation, ambitious project, and how he keeps Safaricom at the top of its game. From the small country of Guyana, he started off by selling artifacts made out of plasticine and jewelry made out of shells at just 12 years old. Today, he is the CEO of East and Central Africa's biggest telecommunications company and the region's most profitable entity. His name, Robert, popularly known as Bob Collymore. I'm Stella Kaibung'a, and this is Tech Space. Hello, Bob.
Hi, Stella.
How are you?
I'm good.
Humble beginnings.
You know, when you put it that way, it sounds really bad because I'm one who's dead against child labor, and now you remind me that I myself was at one point involved in child labor.
And at 16, you were doing was it a convenience store that you're the first one to come in and the last one to go out?
Oh man, you read you did your research.
Completely one, yes.
Yes, I used to be the first one. The first ones to go in there and open the shop and take the deliveries, and then the last ones to sweep the floor and lock the doors on Saturday night.
So what are some of the life lessons that you got from that, those beginnings?
It helps you to understand what it's like to wear other people's shoes. And so I do understand what it's like to work for, 14 hours a day. I do understand what it's like to be the most junior or the most lowly paid employee in the company. I do understand what it's like to have to sweep around people's feet. And therefore, I do understand the importance of respect and respecting those people who are sweeping the floor, respecting the janitors and respecting, those people who we disparagingly refer to as the bottom of the pyramid. They're not the bottom of the pyramid, they're people. And so that was probably the most important life lesson for me.
Wow. Okay. Back in 2013, Safaricom launched an ambitious $40 million project dubbed Safaricom Digital City. The project was put in place to roll out high-quality fiber in major cities and big towns in Kenya. Its primary objective was to grow the enterprise segment with focus on SMEs by leveraging its investments in connectivity and data storage. Okay, so you're doing big things. Tell us a bit about the Safaricom Digital City fiber optic project.
So the Safaricom Digital City is about laying our own fiber optic in the ground, and we've currently got about 700 kilometers down. It was initially envisaged to be about a 5-year project. We probably shortened that and accelerated. And the reason why it's important is so we can deliver reliable, good quality data for our customers. We've been leasing it until now, and leasing has got two problems. One is that it's expensive, and secondly, we can't manage the quality. Well, the investment continues over the next 3-4 years, and as I said, we will now start to connect buildings to fiber. Initially, we said we just wanted to connect our base stations, but now we're connecting our buildings and connecting customers to fiber, which will deliver to them much better service.
Speaking even on infrastructure, let's talk about cloud service. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you had embarked on it, but what happened to the investment?
When we embarked on it, we were the largest. We described ourselves as the largest indigenous African cloud. In other words, a lot of people had their cloud sitting offshore and we had it onshore. I would say it wasn't as successful as we thought at the beginning, so we had a few starts at it, quite honestly. Our ambition at the time was to take all those big corporates and host their stuff in our clouds. What big corporates were saying was that, my friend, you need to prove yourself first. And so now we're producing solutions for small and medium-sized enterprises. So we're doing software as a service. We're managing people's payroll. We're managing their accounting system, and we're doing this now in collaboration with KCB under the umbrella of the Shower Smart, and we're seeing some good uptake in this now. But our original ambition was to be everybody's cloud, and that didn't work out.
So you were told to take it a bit slowly by the corporates. Do you think you've arrived to that place where you can actually restart the conversation?
Yeah, we have actually restarted the conversation, but I think what we've done is we've now said, let's also look at the small and micro kind of businesses and give them a solution as well and build our credibility. But we're hosting a lot of cloud services for government, for example, because cloud services could just be about storing data. It could be about co-location. In other words, you put your service in our premises and we manage it for you. So we're doing a lot of that stuff, but I think we've just expanded this and gone a little further down the food chain, if you like, to capture the small, medium-sized enterprise.
Still on infrastructure, let's talk about the fact that there are few regulations that have been put on Safaricom in terms of you have to now share your infrastructure with other players in the industry. What's your take on that?
There's been a bit of a misnomer in this one because we've always shared. I think we're now just going to accelerate the sharing, but we've always shared our infrastructure with Orange, with Airtel, and with U-Mobile to a lesser extent. So we've always been prepared to share it on a commercial basis, but that's the sharing of the passive infrastructure. In other words, you can climb onto my mast and you can put your aerials. We haven't gone to active sharing yet, and we haven't gone to sharing of things like generators and that kind of stuff yet. But I think as an industry, we'll continue to explore that. We're not resisting it.
So the regulations are, it's not really such a big deal as it is out there.
It's not such a big deal. It's not just a big deal. It becomes a problem when people talk about active sharing of spectrum. Now that doesn't happen anywhere else in the world yet, and the rules haven't yet been defined. So we're always a little bit worried when people say active sharing. So exactly what do you mean by that? Once that gets defined, then we'll take a look at it. Well, we've invested significantly over the past 14 years. Even now we're investing at about 27 billion shillings a year. And that's an investment which is paying off for us. And we're also a little bit reluctant for people who have not invested anything, but wanted to simply ride in the back of this. And some guys, life doesn't work like that. But having said that, for the other infrastructure providers who are here, not just the mobile infrastructures, but also the guys who are providing fixed infrastructure, they are, we're more than happy to share with them.
Okay. So far, Safaricom has been very dominant, particularly in this country. But there are other people who are entering the market, the licenses and things like that. So in terms of the MVNOs, there's Orange being in talks with Viettel from Vietnam. There's also Equity. How do you see the game change in the coming years?
One of the things about this industry is it continues to change. The dynamics will continue to change. Innovation will continue to be rolled out by us and by other people. And I think Kenya is a country which has warmly welcomed these innovations and these changes. So we welcome it. I think honestly, as a large player, many people say you need competition. We say yeah, we do. But you can't blame me for competition failing. Especially when competition do things where we look at it and we say, well, that doesn't make any business sense. Why are you doing that? And then eventually it fails, and people say, well, you're too big. The only other thing I can do is I can cut my customers off, because it's a little bit, you're a very tall lady, and it's a little bit like saying you're too tall. Let me just chop your legs off. That's just a foolish thing to say. So the competition needs to build themselves up, and we welcome the competition because it keeps us on our toes.
Speaking of competition, recently you lowered your transaction prices with M-Pesa. Is this the beginning of, is it round 2 of price wars, do you think?
No, I don't think so. And it's not the first time we've changed our tariffs. If you recall, a couple of years ago, we did exactly the same thing. So we reduced the lower, the transaction fees for the lower value transactions. And we did an adjustment in the mid-tier, and this is exactly what we did again, because if you looked at the transaction fees for someone who was moving between 10 and 49 shillings, we were charging them 3 shillings. And we had always said, let's try and find a way of reducing that. So now we've reduced that down to 1 shilling. The top end remains the same, so it's still 110 shillings to do anything about 50,000 shillings.
Are you ever going to lower that? you think?
Conceivably, but at this stage we wouldn't signal that we are. We think that the price is about right, but the dynamics continue to change, and so we'll continue to respond to that.
I'm sure the reception has been phenomenal.
Yeah, we've had a good reception from people who move monies below 2,500 shillings, but actually, that reduction affects about 65% of the total number of transactions that we're carrying out. And we started by saying we want to just deepen financial inclusion, and you can't be deepening financial inclusion if you're charging someone 30%. And so that has come down, and I think customers are happy.
So we're seeing banks entering the telecommunications sector, and we're seeing also KQ got an MVNO license the other day. Are we seeing Safaricom coming out of just telecommunications and using their M-Pesa to go into banking?
I would rather like to buy an airplane and start my own airline. I'm kidding. No, I think that the traditional boundaries which have defined industries are all blurring, and we're playing very much in the healthcare sector today, working with the Ministry of Health, working with KEMSA, working with AMREF. We're beginning to work with the Ministry of Labour, Ministry of Agriculture, to see if we can find solutions to them. So those traditional boundaries are no longer relevant. A customer wants a one-stop shop. If you're a small business, you want to have a one-stop shop. You want to take out a loan. You don't want to have to go to the loan company and then to the telecommunications company and then to the software company to do your payroll accounting. So Be a Shower Smart is a very good example of the kind of partnership. Some people choose partnerships and some people choose to do it on their own. And our view is the partnership way is the way to go. And for other people, doing everything themselves is their solution.
Okay. Let's talk a bit about technology. M-Pesa, is there a 2.0 version of it that we should expect?
Yeah, there's a 2.0, good question. And that's coming out in March of next year. Mm-hmm. So the boys and girls in the team here, and IBM and Vodafone and everyone else, Huawei, are busy working on it. We've actually got the hardware already installed. We've got the second release of the software, which we're currently testing, and there are going to be a few more releases before we get to March. So by March you will see a much more versatile platform, which is going to be hosted here in country as well, which gives us much more control over it.
Let's talk about your CSR. You're really big in supporting young people and innovations, and you're also big, especially when it comes to health, through your foundation. Where does the passion come from? And do we see you doing even much more as we move on?
You can guarantee that we'll be doing much more. Because as a philosophy, we don't believe that the business of business is just business. We don't believe that it's all about shareholders or customers. We think there are lots of other stakeholders. We think that there's society at large. We think there are regulators. We think there's the media. The reason why we spend this much time with you is, we want to help you to get your messages across. And so it's a little bit like standing on a ball rather than like standing on a seesaw, if you like. And this business will not continue to be successful and thriving if we don't have a society which is equitable, where gender equality isn't respected, where children's rights aren't respected. So we very much believe that at the core of what we do has to be about community upliftment, not about generating profit.
Okay, I think just to add a bit on that, having met very many people who are tech entrepreneurs or entrepreneurs in any sector, the biggest issue normally they say is capital. But I think from my observation, this is my opinion, my observation, mostly it's mentorship, because the lessons that they are taught, I think, are bigger than the money that you can give someone. What's your take on that?
I kind of agree with you. I agree that it's not about capital. People tend to look to capital as being the big barrier. A lot of people give them money and they'll waste it. Actually, if you started by talking about the tech entrepreneurs, a lot of these guys, they come up with some very smart ideas, but they then don't know how to make a company work. They don't know how to make a partnership work. They don't know how to register their IP. And so this is why we spend some time here incubating some of these young people. Actually, you don't have to be young, but usually it's young. Incubating them, helping them to work through some of those issues. How do you build a business case? How do you put a marketing plan together? Just because you're a techie doesn't mean you'll be able to do that stuff. And I'd urge more companies to embrace that, because frankly, we can't create the number of jobs that we need to create as a country. So we have to really encourage young people to create their own opportunities. And if every young person creates an opportunity which hires 5, you can see how the massive impact that's going to have on society at large.
In an increasingly competitive marketplace, Safaricom's future will most likely be dependent on its mobile money transfer service, M-Pesa, and in servicing the increasing need for data access. And in guiding this company into the future will be the once very ambitious 12-year-old boy from Guyana, Bob Collymore. So join us again on TechSpace, where we talk to the leaders of the global technological space on today's realities and tomorrow's aspirations. This has been Stella Kaibung'a.